Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/280, and you can email me at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 280th edition of the Pedalshift Project. My name is Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, we kick off yet another tour, the spring tour, The Missing Link. This is a long time coming. You heard about it in the preview episode last week. If you haven't checked out Pedalshift 279, you should probably go check that out. And this week, it's the first day of the tour. And without previewing things too much, things did not go as expected. I know that is not a shock to any of you who listen to the show for even a short amount of time. No, things did not go quite the way I had planned. But you know what? It was pretty awesome nonetheless. So I really am excited to share this over the course of the next several weeks with you. On the first day, I fly from Washington, D.C. to San Diego, California, and I work my way up and out of town through the University of California at San Diego and end up in Carlsbad, California. It was a fun day, and it was the beginning of a lot of interesting things to come. Hope you enjoy. Good morning from the beginning of day one. And I am having a big flashback right now. I am at good old DCA here in Washington, D.C., really Arlington, Virginia, but I've said that a million times. Sorry for that horrible sound. It's been that kind of morning. The one nice thing I will say is that the entrance through security went much smoother this time. If you'll recall, one of the things that created the comedy of errors of me losing my ID last time started here and started at security just because I had this chaotic kind of issue with the bike and I left certain things behind and had to go running back, and I put my ID in my pocket, I think, and that was the beginning of losing the ID. Well, I went back and I did everything that I normally do, which is to, as soon as I'm through security, put my ID away in my wallet, put the wallet back where I normally have it in my pants. Basically, I am following my own protocols, which is so much better. So I feel a lot better with how things went this morning. We've got 2 flights today to get to San Diego. The brief backstory is I had pre-COVID credits to burn on Southwest Airlines. Normally, I would fly Alaska Airlines all the way to the West Coast, but because I had use it or lose it within, I think it was this month, credits, I am flying a 2-leg flight out to San Diego. I'll be connecting in beautiful Kansas City, which we all know from past tours. So just the airport this time, of course, no kiddie trail involved. And that's about it. I'm very tired. I am very excited to maybe grab a little bit of sleep on this first leg out to Kansas City. But you will probably not hear much more about the travails of air travel unless, of course, there's some issue that pops up. So maybe I should stop talking about that. But here's the deal. As soon as I get to San Diego, I basically take all my gear out, throw it on the bike, and I get going. I've got about a 3-hour ride ahead of me once I land. And time zones are helping me out because I land around 12:30 Pacific time, which gives me plenty of time to handle that first leg of the ride. So, day one, early start. Off we go. And just like that, I am in San Diego. That felt like the longest travel day ever, and the crazy part is I'm just getting started. As evidenced by the fact this is the beginning of the podcast for you. It feels like it's, at the end of a long day, and 33 miles of riding to go, including probably the only real climbing I have of note of this trip. As you leave San Diego, go through the San Diego State, I believe, the campus. You have to climb up to get there. go through past Torrey Pines, the golf course, and a few other places of note. But it looks like it's beautiful weather. Sun is out. Gonna have to make sure I get covered up and all that. But looks like the beginning of a great ride, and I'm really looking forward to it. But of course, the first things first, I gotta make sure my bag gets here because, well, my saddle's in that, so that's necessary. I assume it'll be all right. Assuming that it is, next time you'll hear from me, I'll be setting up. All right. Well, after a little bit of a scare, thinking that my bag had not arrived, it was, as it sometimes ends up, put into the large items area, just because I think it's an unusual sized bag. I think that's where it ends up going sometimes. So that's all good. I am immediately outside of the airport. It took me a few minutes to confirm, but it does look like basically you walk out the airport and then along the concourse where there's bus pickups and passenger pickup. Basically, you just continue down that way and you pick up the trail there, which is just fantastic for a pickup for an airport. I'm really very pleased by that. The big ticket thing that I need to do right now is to get stuff put away and a couple of things rejiggered. Nothing too fancy, but just enough to kind of make this a bit of an ordeal. I realized I did not get water inside, and I'm kind of past the point of no return unless there's a water fountain immediately nearby, which it looks like there actually is. I might be able to roll my bike in there and get something and just hope. If somebody does say no, then I'm just like, okay, cool. And then I turn around and go away and get water elsewhere. But I would really like to fill up here. The bike made it fine. The gear made it fine. It looks like I have no complaints at this point. It does look like that I may have forgotten to bring an additional bungee to hold down my rear rack gear. Now, the good news is that, as many of you probably know, if you followed my tours in any way, shape, or form, you know that there are bungees that are built into the Bromptons, so that'll probably take care of things. At least for today, for this ride. I may consider picking up some additional ones, just to be on the safe side. Now I'm also kind of trying to figure out, all right, what's the temperature like? What's my deal here? And I think that what's going to happen is I'm going to lose the heavier wool top and go to short sleeves and sun sleeves, just because I'm probably going to get warm over time, and they always say start cold, and I think that that's probably the right way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, I think I did a good job of being organized going into this. Looks like it's going to be about 3 hours worth of riding, give or take. I've got more than enough energy to do that. I'm just kind of raring to go, you know what I mean? Just after sitting all day and having a bad night's sleep and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be nice to be rolling again. Just gorgeous weather. I mean, San Diego is San Diego. It's arguably the best weather in the entire United States. You really can't beat it. Okay, well, I'm not completely pulled together, but I'm at least pulled stuff out, and rather than force you to listen to me packing more things, I'm just going to do it. Next, you'll find out whether or not I can get water or not. Very exciting beginning to a trip, huh? Well, that actually ended up being some good luck. Not only did I find a bungee, which I remembered I actually did pack because I used it to keep my backup bag for if they force me to check the bike. Keeping that kind of compact inside of one of my other carry-ons, or my one carry-on. That was easy, and that has now secured things. Sorry for all the ambient noise here, but soundscape, right? Then the other thing was, once I got everything all pulled together, I was able to roll right in, use my neck gaiter as the mask to comply with the airport rules, and it was, 30 feet away for getting to the water fountain filled right up. So things are looking good right now. It's hard to complain when you are about to roll off and there are palm trees around you and it's not hot. Sun is pretty robust. So I am covered up. The only thing I haven't put on yet is my cycling gloves, which I will in a moment. But I hit the sunscreen on my face and I'm covered. I'm going to wear long pants on this ride because it's really not going to hit higher than the 60s, I think, today. So that should be good. Yeah, and now I'm just making sure that this is the way. As I walk along here, I'm not going to ride quite yet. I'm also going to want to double check on Google Maps to make sure that I am indeed going the right way. No bicycling, skateboarding, wheeled devices on sidewalk. Well, considering this is the effective way one gets via bicycle to here, I think that you kind of have to. I'm going to make sure I'm going in the right direction before I lead a wheel off. Oh wait, dude on a bike. Maybe I should follow him. All right, we'll do that. We will do that. Follow dudes on bikes. Well, everything worked out fine, except for the fact that this definitely wasn't the way I was supposed to go. But it worked out, and found myself on this incredible trail through these incredible bayside parks. I can see the airport from across, I guess, some inlet of some type. Across the Nimitz Bridge. Oh, getting an airplane going right over my head right now. We have a similar park near DCA and called Gravelly Point, where you can kind of hang out and watch flights take off and land right over your head if you're into such things, which is pretty cool. But boy, what a view. I mean, just the Mediterranean climate and the kind of arid plants. It's like, yes, California. I was last here in June, but not nearly this far south, so it is nice to be in this part of the state again. Actually, that's wrong. I was in California in December. This path is very easy. There's very few people here. It's a weekday afternoon, but just beautiful to see the boats out. Everybody enjoying themselves a little bit. Team Brompton. That was fun. I always like the Brompton people. We always say is the cult, like the surly folks. But yeah, everybody's like, oh, I recognize that bike. But they were not riding with nearly as much stuff on it as I am today. So yeah, everything has been going just great. I'm taking this super chill today and not gonna even stress about mileage, miles per hour, speed, anything. I have lost my trail, so I'm going to actually stop yakking at you and make sure I don't go too far off of my route here. That would be problematic. Since I'm leaving kind of an urban area, it's always good to kind of know where I'm going. So we'll check in a little bit later. Most people call this is California 1, the PCH. It is only the PCH in a few spots. It drops the coast down this direction. So it's just the Pacific Highway for reasons I am unsure of why, but I'm very excited because this is my first time on it since, well, down here since 2014. And of course I was coming from the opposite direction. And it's probably worth noting at the outset here that the breezes are very light right now. I'm not getting that headwind, and I would argue I might even be getting a little bit of a tailwind, or at least a crosswind. There's a flag right across the street from me here on Pacific Highway, and that is blowing, let's see, if I'm going north, that would be an easterly, going to the east wind. So there's that. To my right are train tracks and Old Town San Diego. If you were taking the train, this is one of the stops. And it looks like the local commuter rail is going by right now. One of the options that I had was to take the train from here and to not do these miles, but I'm kind of glad that I did them for the reasons that I talked about on the setup pod. You know, I kind of like the idea that I can roll through an airport and, you know, put the bike together and go. I mean, it feels like cheating, but here we are. All right, we are rolling. Oops, somebody is not looking. Yeah, one of the things you gotta watch on this road is there's parking to my right. This is a dedicated bike lane. It is protected with spacers, but man, people often do not look where they're going. Interestingly, there's a lot of campers here. This looks like folks potentially living out of their campers. These are nicer campers. Some of them are nicer, some of them aren't. Some are folks, this is their housing option, which happens for so many folks around here. One person had a solar panel out, so there are a wide range of situations amongst all these folks. That's really interesting. Things you tend to see a lot when on bike tour, particularly in the West. All right, I am crossing the San Diego River. I do have to say I wonder if I'm doing this wrong in some ways, you know. I'm literally in San Diego for, frankly, a matter of minutes before I'm leaving it. And I really do enjoy San Diego, but there's so much adventure that's heading north from here, and probably easier adventure too. So I'm gonna take advantage of that. I think in cities, it's harder to pull off the loaded touring bike. Even the Brompton, which allegedly is an easier bike, when I've got it loaded in this way, it's no different than a full-size touring bike in the sense that I can't fold it up and bring it in very easily. I could throw everything into the duffel, fold up the bike and bring it in. That's just a lot to carry, of course. So I tend to like the beach towns and whatnot, but at the same time, you got to be careful of your gear wherever you are, urban, rural, and in between, I think. So when I do go inside someplace, I will always make sure I carry with me the most important stuff, phone, wallet, battery even, and charger, just because that's if everything goes and I at least have that, well, I at least have that. So that's good. Just got passed with great authority by a guy on a road bike, just mercilessly passed. Like, in a good way, but just like, that dude's doing some real speed that I am incapable of doing. You may be hearing the headwinds that I just said. I don't really have them. Well, I have them. And we're starting, I think, the series of gradual climbs that are going to be a part of it. Now, some of this, as you can hear to my left, is I-5, you know, and other ramps to get up and over interstates. So there's going to be that, but I see the hills ahead of me that will be part of my big climb today. I think that the challenge, each day has its own challenge, and today it's I'm coming in tired and having traveled all day, so the challenge is that plus climbing, which I haven't really done this year, but this bike can handle it, and I think it's all good. Up ahead and to my left, SeaWorld. If you would like to see captive marine mammals, do they still have them? They probably do. Go to SeaWorld. When I was a kid, we did a couple of trips out here to visit my great aunt, my dad's aunt, who lived in Arleta. which is in the valley near LA. We came down here for that. Again, apologies for the wind, which may be killing you a bit here. Got some good looking beach ahead. The bike route is pretty well defined. I'll be going through Mission Bay Park right now, which of course is a beautiful part of this area. And you know, part of the issue is you're dodging the 5 and the 10. So on ramps, cars trying to get there, etc., etc. But here we are on the official bike route. Shadowed in this part, and I think I do have the option of grabbing the trail if I'd like. I'm using Ride with GPS again for my routing, which is just really helpful. Yes, this is the Mission Bay bike path that I'll be on, although I can continue on the road. Both Google Maps and Ride with GPS routes supplied by others do recommend taking this path. There's quite a bit of bike paths in this trip, which I'm really grateful for. Some of these trails are better than others in my experience. If you listened to the 2014 ride, which I would really encourage you to do, from past episodes and even a best of, the biggest surprise, pleasant surprise, was how much I really enjoyed riding from LA to Anaheim. And I'm going to get to do that again on this particular trip, which is really fun and cool. I think I am sticking with my route correctly. One of the challenges of riding and wayfinding while talking to you is apps have to change around. Yes, this is the correct way. Coming up on your left here. A nice little park. It's enormous. Yeah, there's a part of me that, while I dearly love being a native New Yorker, I do totally understand why people end up in California and stay here. It's pretty great. And particularly here, San Diego, I mean, I think the average weather year-round is like mid-70s. Coming up on your left here. Passing one of those kind of tourist vehicles. How do you describe them? They're multiple people all pedaling at once in a four-wheeled kind of trolley thing. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? That's why I announce when. Well, I feel like I've kind of yammered on enough for this particular segment here in Mission Bay. More to come. Now on the Rose Creek Bikeway, and I have, what a beautiful path this is. After being on as I said, some of the paths are better than others. This one is outrageously nice. It's like a bike highway going right by an In-N-Out burger, which honestly, let me go hot take here. Little overrated. Sorry, Californians. I feel the same way about Chick-fil-A, if that's of any solace to folks. Also, I don't really eat meat that much, if at all, anymore, so maybe I'm the wrong person to have the hot takes here. So this is a beautiful bit of infrastructure here. Honestly, I don't remember this. It could have been here back in 14, but I honestly don't remember any of this infrastructure to be off the road completely during all of this. I remember being on a kind of secondary road that I think was close to motor vehicles at some point, and maybe that's ahead of me here, but yeah, this is really nice, and I don't recall it. Now, this would have been coming mostly downhill from the university, so maybe I just kind of bombed through this and forgot about it. I think, as I look at the way the 5 is right now over my left shoulder, and kind of the flora around me. This feels like it was that old road that was repurposed. I am under 6 miles away from the UC San Diego campus. One thing that's probably worth noting is, I'm outside of the city of San Diego, but this is still considered San Diego, just like LA is much more than downtown LA, because this is San Diego County. So the labels it gets, this is still San Diego because of the county situation. Going by a big old daycare. Sun is still beating down pretty good, but man, if it's warmer than the mid 60s, I'd be pretty stunned. This is a great scenario for me to underwater myself, so I am probably going to take an extended water break at some point. I have a half-liter bottle with me. I also have some electrolyte drinks, the grape powder that I had left over from the Florida trip. So that's another option. I'm not hungry at the moment. I did have a piece of pizza that I brought with me on the plane. I'm glad I brought food with me because, as I mentioned, the Kansas City airport was not great for stuff. I went to the Starbucks and got a breakfast sandwich there, which was fine, but not great for riding 30 miles on. So I'm glad I had the piece of pizza from DC from left over from the night before. So I had that, and that's giving me plenty of fuel for this early part. Once I get to the other side of the campus, if memory serves, then we start getting into some of the towns that will be greeting me along the way. Some potential for some fast food kind of situation or stuff like that. But I also have some snacks with me that might be enough to get me there. I wouldn't mind not stopping for food if I can avoid it, because then I can just get a bigger dinner tonight and just focus on that. Starting to get into the hills north of the city of San Diego, which is a major feature of North San Diego County, or North County, if memory serves. That's how it's referred to. Very beautiful, classic California, where you're sort of like, you're by the water, and it's sort of like arid. The Mediterranean climate is for reals. So the 5 is a companion for a good chunk of the ride over the next day or two. 2 actually, at minimum. And frankly, it also ends up being a part of the ride into Anaheim. I rejoin it there. So the 5 is a good indicator that I'm making progress. And when I say the 5, of course, I mean Interstate 5 for those of you who aren't in the States. That is the main north-south interstate on the west coast of the U.S. It goes all the way to the Canadian border in Blaine, Washington, and then goes all the way down to, I cannot remember the name of the town off the top of my head, but south of San Diego, connecting to Tijuana, Mexico. So it's a big road. It's a big deal. And but for my northbound pursuits, I was considering riding it southbound to bypass the Marine base, which I'll be doing tomorrow. And I've thought better of that, considering I can go northbound. And I just pay for it a little bit every day with the headwinds. Speaking of, yeah, they're there. They're fine. Not a big deal. I'm starting to get sunscreen in my eyes. One of my least favorite things. Wildflowers are so beautiful here in the spring in California. Took a picture of some that were almost like cacti-like, but of course there's just other beautiful flowers that I wish I knew the names of. Saw some classic California poppies earlier. I think it's a little early in the season for those to be really abundant, but one of my favorite parts about cycling in the state of California, and Southern California in particular, is just the abundance of
flora that I'm just not used to seeing, and that's kind of fun and nice. As we exit or continue on this bike highway, this is part of the climb that I'm going to be doing. It's very gradual, so the bike is munching it up just fine. Not making particularly great time. I'm under 10 miles per hour, but I think I found that that's just the deal with the Brompton. I'm sure I could push harder when I'm in touring mode on the Brompton and get up to 10 miles per hour, but I think I found that that's just not worth it. I mean, why bother, right? It's just kind of amazing. This little folding piece of metal and rubber can transport me literally hundreds of miles. So I won't begrudge the fact that it's only going to be doing somewhere around 9 miles per hour on average. Now, probably less as we start to do the climbs, but that's fine too. All right, I am not going to subject you to more of my inner monologue while we start the climb. I think maybe the next talk will be up in the campus at the University of California, San Diego. From the campus of the University of California, San Diego. And basically at the top of the pretty big climb, we are about halfway done. And that's great because I am starting to get just a teeny bit fatigued, probably because I have not been drinking enough water. That's fine. I've got plenty left. I think I'm going to eat again, another heavy snack. You know, an hour and a half figure of riding, I mean, I can bang that out in almost any state, so I figure I'm in good shape. So yeah, this ride's going pretty well. Bike's handling so well. Look, if you've been thinking about a Brompton for touring, I'll tell you what, I've put this thing through its paces on a bunch of longer tours, shorter tours. It's been on trails, it's been on pavement, rough roads, smooth roads. It's a great bike for touring. And, the use case is exactly what I thought it was always going to be. Hop on a plane, throw it in the overhead, and then get out someplace, somewhere in the world, and just go. And it's been great for that. So big ups for that. Winds, I think, have shifted a little bit for me. It feels like I'm getting a little bit from behind now as opposed to the front, which is great. Campus was hopping a little bit. The classes were in session. Interesting, they had tents for outdoor classes, which makes perfect sense for a school like this. Big auditorium style classes, hundreds of students. It was very interesting to see. Don't see that in Syracuse, I'll tell you that much, at least not during the winter. All right, well, I'm going to keep rolling, man. Maybe have a little quick bite to eat and keep going. Feeling good, but looking forward to maybe, checking in, getting a nice dinner, maybe a beer tonight, and looking forward to tomorrow's adventures as well. Working my way through some of these beach towns. I'm about 10 miles away from end of day. Was very low, critically low on water. I'm not following my usual rules about drinking water, but I just found a water fountain and cameled up, and now I'm good. Was feeling a little bit of fatigue there, so that's good to be done with that. 2 hours and 18 minutes of riding so far, just shy of 22 miles. And yeah, so about 10 more to go. So figure another hour. Not making great speed, but I should be there by 6, which frankly, that would be about 4 hours. That's not bad considering. All right, well, we're moving. Weather's beautiful. Sun's very sunny. San Diego, that's what you do. All right, just passing, in the process of passing San Diego State Beach, which is the final campground that you can stay at on the Pacific Coast route. And originally, I was going to camp here, but then I ended up doing some math and some variety of other planning things and decided that it would be better if I did all hotels rather than just the one camping night. Because, of course, I would have had to have carried substantially more gear, and that would have just been for the one night because there's really precious few camping opportunities further north from here. There are some, and in fact, I almost had a second one, but the night wasn't available that I needed. at one of the state parks. It also would have been 50 or 60 bucks for the night, which is insane from my perspective, especially when, the hotels are not substantially more. And of course, that gets into my usual balancing of the objectives and the costs and whatnot. So yes, this will be a more expensive trip, but I didn't have to carry as much. And I'll have to say, based on how I'm feeling right now, boy, I'm glad. This has been a much harder ride than I anticipated. I knew it was going to have some climbs today, and they're not substantial, but I'm just not used to them. Even the Florida ride didn't have anything of note, so that has definitely taken some out of me. But that's fine. I'm going to be all right. I believe I've only got about maybe 7-8 more miles to go. I'll have to check more specifically on the ride with GPS thing. It is hysterical because I am getting passed by so many people. A lot of folks on bikes today. It's really great. But I'm also noticing a lot of them have e-assist, so I could feel a little bit better about that. E-assist would have been nice today. It's certainly something, as I begin to age more, that I'm kind of intrigued with, to lengthen the miles that I can do. As I'm starting to notice that it's harder for me to do 60-mile days every day in a row for, weeks on end like I did 8 years ago. The concept of an e-assist is kind of interesting. Of course, those bikes are a lot heavier. The range on them, it's question marks. Where do you charge? I think a lot of these problems are starting to become solved. In fact, I think I put this out on Twitter recently. There was somebody came up with an adapter for charging, quick charging, a couple of different types of e-bike batteries on the Tesla and other electric automobile charging stations, which I think is kind of intriguing as those become more popular and available. Now, it'd be kind of neat if they had those types of things available for e-bikes too, as they become more popular, to have those perhaps be even more ubiquitous, but we'll see. It is interesting to see how e-bikes are starting to catch the wave a little bit more in a good way. And I think that may be an interesting transportation solution in some, not all places, of course. It's not going to work for folks who are in very spread out rural places, but maybe they will. Who knows? I've seen the folks in Ohio, and they weren't the Amish. They were the other folks that eschew technology, and I'm having bike touring brain, and I cannot remember those folks. My apologies to them and their people. But yeah, they cover great distances on them. So interesting stuff to see as I get past a lot on e-assist bikes, which is all fine by me. All right, more to come.
And just like that, I'm in Carlsbad, California, at a not the greatest hotel I've ever stayed at in the world, but a very welcome one at this point because I am pretty bushed. For a 33-mile ride, that really took a lot out of me. Two reasons. One, talked about it before, there was much more climbing, and I shouldn't say climbing, there were hills, and I haven't had hills in a while. And also hills on this bike are not as easy to traverse as with either of my other two bikes. So there's that. Number two, sun exposure. It was straight sun the whole day, no relief whatsoever. I was covered up pretty good. I feel very good about how much sun I got on my skin. Basically, it was just mostly the face, but I was actually pretty covered up there too. So not too bad, but I am definitely beat. I had grand designs on, finding a restaurant in town and maybe doing it up. And now I'm just kind of looking at, what's the closest thing where I could reasonably have something decent and have at least a little bit of fun doing it. So I don't know what that's going to be ultimately, but we're going to figure it out. The good news is that there are a variety of things really close by that can handle getting some breakfast in me. Because tomorrow is another day where I think there's going to be some hilliness to it. Maybe not quite as much as today, but definitely some hilliness to the ride. And so I just need to be prepared for that. I think that the ride tomorrow will be roughly the same length. So we're just going to have to kind of like play this all by ear. I was originally kind of kicking myself saying, do you really need a 0 day in Anaheim? And I need a 0 day in Anaheim based on how I feel right now. It's really funny how you lose it when you take a few months off. I know I certainly do. But you never know. It's a little bit, maybe age is creeping in there a little bit too. Who knows? But also, the factors that were involved, certainly there. The one thing that was not a factor that I perceived was wind. I did not feel like that there was a sustained headwind. There certainly were gusts, but nothing that bad. It was mostly I think I'm getting this right, an onshore breeze, meaning the winds were coming from the ocean onto the land. A breeze that blows to the east from the west. I think I've covered my bases there. And that didn't impact me at all, which was pretty great. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Legs are screaming at me right now, for all sorts of reasons that I think are mostly having to do with my silly inability to hydrate. I didn't stop any place to pick up a second water bottle or a Gatorade or anything like that. And that's something I'm going to definitely make sure that I solve tonight. There's several places where I can pick stuff up. One of the reasons is that I don't love locking up the Brompton while I have to go in someplace. And, the other interesting thing is that when you're going northbound, most of the services are on the opposite side of the road through all of the towns. In fact, there was a great trail that made it even more difficult if I wanted to get to the other side of the road. Certainly doable, but it would have taken, some actual effort to do. And I was kind of like, I just want to kind of wrap this up. I want to get the miles in. I want to get to the town. And I thought, again, my grand plans to have a fun night out. I don't think I've got the energy in it for me, but I'm planning on hopping in the shower. I took a couple of Advil just to kind of knock things down, and I am hydrating and electrolyting. One thing that I did not bring, my electrolyte pills. I thought that they were in my bag. They are not. So I'm going to definitely need to rely on sports drinks if this is going to continue to be the conditions. It's really funny because when I look at the temperatures and see, lows in the mid 50s, highs in the mid 60s, but no rain, I'm thinking, perfect. And I keep underestimating, despite the takeaways episode from literally last week, I underestimate how much sun exposure can really, really impact me. So I just got to do better, which means I got to do a better job of hydrating and continue to cover up like I did. So anyways, that is the excitement for day one. Raging success. I did not lose my ID. I flew in, was able to get the Brompton in the overhead twice successfully with no issues whatsoever, and literally rode off from San Diego Airport, which is one half of the boxes to check on this trip, where I'm hoping to literally ride into LAX to complete at least the California side of things by bike. So that's exciting. I think a hot shower and then maybe getting some actual food in me, as opposed to, what did I have? Those cheese and crackers, the packets that are, that was basically what I ate today. I did not treat my body well today. This was definitely a abuse the body day for reasons I'm unclear on. I think I'm going to do better tomorrow. And that'll be next week for you.
Statistics. Miles biked 33.6. Bromptons stowed in the overhead of planes. 1 Brompton, 2 planes. Vertical feet climbed 1,348. Hours biked 3 hours, 23 minutes. Flats, 0.
And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like this fall's upcoming bike tour. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadas, Chris Barron, Mark Van Rank, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joaquin Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBon, Ari Messenger, David Gropke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Azuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponseller, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, and new to the society, Ryan Patterson. And thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.